Hi everybody, welcome to Lauren's Crazy Pet Show. We are swimming with the fishes today. Well, not really, kind of. We're on location in Norwalk, Connecticut at the fabulous Maritime Aquarium. It is so lovely. This is my co-host today, Dave.
It's good to have you. Thanks for coming back.
We are so happy to be here. There's some big, fat turtles in back of us swimming around, which you're going to see in a second, which actually have been here since they were little babies.
Yeah, they came to us from a lab in Florida that was doing some research on a health issue that affects sea turtles in the wild, and after their work there was done, they needed someplace to go, and we happily accepted them. They came to us when they were maybe about this big around, and now they weigh about 200 pounds.
Whoa, and they're going to get bigger, you said.
And they'll get even bigger. They are two green sea turtles, and there's also an even bigger loggerhead sea turtle in here as well.
So cool. I mean, and that's really just part of your mission is conservation. And I'm so excited for people out there to see all the rich diversity you have here of our marine life all across the East Coast.
Right, and even especially focused on Long Island
and
Sound.
The Long Island
because we're
Sound.
right here on the Sound, and what we want to do is we want to get people excited about the marine life in the Sound. It's funny, people don't really picture the Long Island Sound being part of the Atlantic Ocean for some reason.
That's why I'm like,
they're shocked to discover that there are sharks in the Sound, there's sea turtles in the summer, there's seals in the winter, so there's all this marine life right in the western, even the western end of Long Island Sound within sight of Manhattan. Everyone's responsibility when they go home from leaving the Maritime Aquarium is to know that the things I do on my property affect the health of the Long Island Sound and the animals here. And so that's our mission, is to try and get people excited about the Sound, the animals in there, and become stewards for the Sound.
And we have a really exciting show. We're going to go to Stratford, Connecticut, where we meet some shorebirds that are very important too, and that's something that you talk about as well. We're also going to meet a guy and his dog who are at the top of their fields. Okay, it's nothing to do really with fish, but it's a very important partnership. And I get to do the most exciting thing. I got to feed the sharks, and we're going to get to that later. But first, we want everyone to see the diversity here because, as you said, it's really amazing. And sometimes you don't think that all this will be right here in Connecticut.
Right, so there's all these sorts of things. If you go down to the beach, you might find crabs and horseshoe crabs and maybe jellies close to shore. If you go out on your boat, you're going to see all sorts of other types of fish. If you are fish, there's all kinds of game fish out there. And how we interact with the Sound is very important. You don't have to have coastal property to affect the health of the Sound. Everything you put, if you over-fertilize your lawn, how you wash your car, whether your car's dripping battery oil, all these things can affect the health because it all eventually flows down into the Sound and affects the living environment for all these animals.
And when you come here, that's what's so important. You can actually see them. You're also into education.
Right.
And also rescue, as we know about this turtle.
We have some animals here, even our seals. Some of them were born in other institutions, but some of them were rescued as abandoned pups when they were babies.
Wow.
They were rescued and needed a place to live. So there's all kinds of different stories here of all the animals. Everyone has a story.
Everybody's got a story.
And they're all fascinating and they're all compelling. And so, we invite our guests to come here and learn about these animals, get excited about them, and feel a responsibility for them.
And it's interactive too. You have the...
It's actually the largest video wall in New England, and there are 4 kiosks there, and you go and you just like, well, I'd like to do a shark, a seal, a flounder, a squid, one of these animals, and then you get to decide what it looks like, and you get to name it, and then you push a button and it goes up and swims on this screen.
You're drawing it, and then there it is, and it looks real.
And they swim exactly like the real animals swim. The programming, whoever did the animation for this really did a good job.
It's really neat. Also, I'm very inspired by the fact that you are working on some really important conservation projects, and one you might not think of it is with corals.
Corals are having a hard time in all the oceans of the world, and in Florida, the Florida Reef Tract, which runs through much of the east coast of Florida down around to the Keys. Now there's a new disease that's running through that area like a wildfire. And so some of the aquariums in the United States have taken corals out of the water there that are still healthy where this disease has not reached, and we have them now here. And once that disease runs its course and finishes at the reef area in Florida, it'll be safe to take these animals back and start building the reef over.
See, and you might not think about that, as well as when you come and you're sitting and watching the fish, it's so relaxing. But you're really teaching people about the different species as well, and there's so many here.
Right, so I think we have, there's over 300 species of animals here, from like the tiniest of jellyfish to the 200-pound sea turtles. But there's, all kinds of different animals and different, the marine world is so different. All these dynamic, different shapes, sizes, adaptations are really fascinating, much different than what land animals would have.
Very fascinating. Okay, stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to go and take a look at some of the shorebirds, as you said, and it's all intertwined.
Right.
I think you'll love it.
Cool.
And you too, stay tuned. Welcome back to Lauren's Crazy Pet Show. We're on location at the Maritime Aquarium right in Norwalk, Connecticut, and we are having so much fun. This is Dave. He is my fantastic co-host. Thank you so much for inviting us.
I'm glad you came. It's good to see you.
One of the things I love is touching. You have touch tanks here. You can actually feel the fish.
You know, so many people learn more by like tactile interactions, you know, so to be able to touch something and feel it, like, it just makes that connection even stronger. So there's shark and rays behind us. Farther back behind us are jellies.
Yeah.
You can touch jellies, and up in the other galleries there's an intertidal touch tank where you can touch crabs and whelks and things.
Yeah. And what also is part of your story are the shorebirds,
right,
which we just did a fabulous piece on.
Right.
So we went to Stratford, so let's take a look. You know, when we walk along the shoreline here in Connecticut, we think about the marine life, but often we don't think about all the rich, diverse bird life along here.
Yeah, more than 400 species of birds call Long Island Sound home, at least for part of the year. There have been more than 400 different species found in Long Island Sound and on the shores. And there are certain areas that are, well, the Sound as a whole is very important to birds and marine life, but there are certain areas that are especially important. And we're at a very important spot today, which is Long Beach in Stratford. Just over to my left is the Great Meadows Marsh, and it's a critical ecosystem for birds. It's recognized as a globally significant important bird area, in part because of the wintering area for long-tailed ducks right off here in Long Island Sound. Also, it's very important for nesting piping plovers in the warmer season and nesting least terns. But almost any time of year you can find a diverse array of wildlife here along the coast of Long Island Sound. We recently came out with our Connecticut State of the Birds report, which is titled "An Improving Long Island Sound Faces Unprecedented Change." And there is a lot of change facing Long Island Sound, but habitats for now are all very important and quite resilient. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the future, but there's a lot of efforts to improve Long Island Sound's water quality, to improve the habitat for nesting birds, and all of this effort will make it more resilient in the face of climate change.
Now, what are some of the birds that we would be able to see?
Sure, this time of year it can be a little quieter, but there are a lot of sea ducks that you can see out here. One of the most abundant is something called a long-tailed duck. They used to be called old squaw, and they have this really neat type of call that they do to each other. And when the flocks are out there, it's really neat to listen to them yakking back and forth with one another. Also, there's Brant, which are a type of goose, a small goose, smaller than the Canada goose. They nest way up high in the Arctic in winter here. Also, it's a great place to see gulls. As you look down, you see all these shells, these slipper shells. They're really abundant off the intertidal zone here, and the storms bring them up on shore, and thousands of gulls sometimes gather in here, taking advantage of that. And we have two species of shorebirds that are here in the wintertime. One's called a dunlin and one's called a sanderling. And flocks of several hundred sometimes you can see on this beach, depending on how much food is available. And occasionally, you know, when we think of gulls, people say seagulls, but there's actually several different species of gulls. It's fun to actually look through the flocks here trying to find something rare. Last month I had an Iceland gull here, which is a bird that breeds up on Baffin Island, way up in the high Arctic of Canada. We also sometimes even get birds from Europe here. The lesser blackback gull has been seen here, and that's a bird that nests in Europe and spends its winter both in Africa and in here, depending on which way it decides to fly. A very long distance migrant. A lot of these birds are very long distance migrants. There are some birds that are increasing, like the piping plover is doing much better than it was 2 decades ago, and that's because of a lot of efforts, conservation efforts. Bald eagles are doing better, osprey are doing better, American oyster catchers are returning to the state. The wading birds, the herons and the egrets that we like to see alongside of our ponds and marshes in the summertime, they were wiped out from Connecticut in the 19th century, and it only came back in the 1970s.
So Patrick, how can people get involved? I know you have activities coming
Yes, we have 7 nature centers across the state, and if you go to our website, ctaudubon.org, you can find out about all of our activities. There's a couple of counts that are ongoing. There's Project Feeder Watch, which is a project of Cornell, and it's where people count the birds at their feeders and help to try and detect long-term trends. Also, there's the Great Backyard Bird Count, which is President's Day weekend. We just had the Christmas bird counts, which had been going on since about 1900. Now, the Great Backyard Bird Count is a newer count. It's sort of a second place mark on the calendar where we're tracking bird populations and distributions, and that happens in February over President's Day weekend.
I just love birds. Love
Gorgeous.
it. Love it. And love it here, too. So we're going to continue here at the Maritime Aquarium, and later on in the show, you know what I'm going to do? Well, you know, because you let me do it. Stay tuned. I'm going to feed the sharks. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Lauren's Crazy Pet Show. We are at the Maritime Aquarium, and I kind of feel like I'm in some kind of meditation.
Are you ready to just relax?
With a lava lamp behind
You
us.
think that this is a crazy busy place, but then there's places you can come in here and just sit and chill.
You know, there's jellyfish all around us, and they are so cool.
And they're beautiful. They come in all kinds of varieties, and we are so good here at the Maritime Aquarium of growing jellies, because you can't just go get them year-round out of Long Island Sound, or if we want to show some of the species from other parts of the world, we grow them, and they play an important role in the environment of either eating or being eaten.
Yeah, we'll talk about being relaxed. We are going to show you a story now about two people, one a dog, one a guy, who are anything but relaxed. They are at the top of their game in different fields, but then they come together. Make sense?
Let's watch.
It will. Let's take a look.
All right.
One has amazing strength and pushes himself to be the very best that he can be. The other has amazing drive and incredible cuteness and brings total joy to everything he does. Together, they form a team striving for glory in two very different, but also surprisingly similar sports.
Hi, my name is Joe Freni. I am a world champion powerlifter as well as a competitive bodybuilder. And this here is Lenny. And Lenny is both a show dog and an agility athlete. So he has titles on both ends, and we're both super competitive. I got into competitive bodybuilding first in 2015. That was after I had gone through a really rough patch, suffered from a pretty deep depression that I was in, and it started taking a toll on me both mentally and physically. I knew I needed to turn my life around, so I started doing new and challenging things. I got into showing Lenny in the AKC Conformation ring, which is a dog show ring, and then also started getting back into the gym and just doing a lot more things with Lenny because Lenny makes me happy, My father started teaching me how to lift back when I was a teenager, and I really should have stuck with it because at 30 is when I started really getting back into fitness, and I became a competitive bodybuilder, which is crazy. So I won the Gold's Gym Challenge. That was kind of my start back into fitness. After that, I set another goal for myself to compete in the NPC, which is the kind of the top organization for bodybuilding. And in 2016, I set another goal for myself. I'd always loved, again, to lift heavy. I had always been really strong in anything with biceps or triceps. So I got into what's called strict curl powerlifting. And since then, I've now won 3 world championships. And I've been showing Lenny for quite some time now. Lenny and I train twice a week at a facility which is one town away from us, and it's about an hour-long class. They will put us through the paces, kind of a simulated show almost. You'll be asked to go around the ring to show the judge how well you move with your dog. You'll put your dog up on the table, and this is when the judge comes over to you. They want to see how well the teeth look. They'll check the top line. They want to make sure that it's nice and straight, and then you'll take your dog all the way around and get back in line. Lenny is not only a champion, but he is a grand champion, which means that you have to win a significant amount of shows. And Lenny has shown over 50 different shows. He was actually the oldest Boston Terrier to compete at Westminster this year at the 143rd showing of Westminster Dog Show. You're not necessarily competing against the other dogs. You're trying to show the judge how closely your dog matches the breed standard, which is set by each AKC Breed Club of America. There's a lot of similarities between bodybuilding and dog shows. There's a lot of grooming that goes into both. Most dogs have their whiskers shaved, their nails trimmed, and you just want to make sure that your dog looks as presentable as possible. And in the bodybuilding world, it's no different. You have to shave, all the hair, in your arms and your chest, and you have to get the spray tans. It's just like dog showing where you're trying to show that your dog's as close to breed standard as possible. You're trying to show the bodybuilding judges that you're as close to what their criteria is that they've set in their guidebooks. Another very interesting thing about Lenny is that he's not just a show dog, just like I'm not just a bodybuilder. We have passions in both competitive, showing, but also on the performance side as well. So Lenny also has titles in agility and fast cat, and he seems to love both, and that's why we keep doing it. We keep chasing our passions, and we do everything together. I'm in the best shape of my life right now, and Lenny was a huge part of that, and we're just gonna keep going.
Oh, he is so cute. But where does the name Lenny come from?
So we got the name Lenny from Leonard Nimoy, aka Spock, who's like the most beloved character in all of Star Trek lore, right? Leonard Nimoy is also from Boston. Lenny's a Boston Terrier. He's also got the pointy ears, just like Spock. We couldn't have picked a more perfect name, I feel. We've built a community via Lenny's Facebook page, which is called Lenny The Boston, and we felt like people would get behind us if we wanted to do a lot of good in this world. So we got with MIT, and we're doing a calendar called Good Dogs of Boston. Those proceeds are going to go to Alzheimer's research. We're also in talks with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we feel like we can do a lot of good there to help really deserving kids make their wishes come true. We do have a marketplace where we sell different Lenny merchandise. We're taking that and we're donating it to a New England Boston Terrier rescue. We're having a blast, and it's not work, it's our passion, and we're just gonna keep going. It's a lot of fun.
I love Boston Terriers, and you know what? You could even come here because you're having a big dog movie.
Dogs as well here. So we have an IMAX movie called Superpower Dogs that is all about dogs that help us, either through like water rescue, dogs that are helping us who need emotional support, and there's even a dog that chases down poachers in Africa. So it's all these dogs and it also talks about how dogs have these superpowers to do all these things. So it's called Superpower Dogs, and it's one of our daily IMAX movies on our big giant IMAX screen.
We have more of our fabulous show right here at the Maritime Aquarium right after this. Welcome back to Lauren's Crazy Pet Show, everybody. Dave continues to be with me as my marvelous co-host, and look what we're doing. We're still in the Maritime Aquarium, which is so fabulous, and we are surrounded by sharks. Luckily, they're in there. We're out here.
This is one of the signature exhibits. People love this. When we ask our guests, what are your favorites exhibits? It's the sharks, the seals, the sea turtles, the jellyfish, things like that. So there's just amazing stuff here.
And it's great because you can be so up close with them and really get a look. And they have big teeth, and you've got different varieties here.
So the largest one are the sand tiger sharks.
The sand tigers. Right. Those are the ones where we see the
their teeth are much more visible. They swim a little slower, and then the one lemon shark is about the same size as the sand tigers. Her nose is a little more rounded, and her teeth aren't nearly as visible. She's more active too. You'll see her swimming more towards the top, more actively. The sand tigers are the largest native species in Long Island Sound, but don't worry, the last shark attack in the Sound was in 1961.
Thank goodness.
So that's what the dive program is all about, of course, is to teach people that we as humans kill thousands and millions of more sharks than sharks hurt human every year. There are places, cultures that take hundreds and hundreds of thousands of sharks out of the water every year just for their fins to make shark fin soup. These practices have to stop because we're starting to lose these animals. And when you start taking like the top apex predators out of an environment, that has a whole pyramid effect, a domino effect of how that affects the environment. So,
and you might not think about that because sometimes when you see a shark, all you think about is Jaws.
Right. Yeah.
But I was so thrilled today because I actually got to feed some of your sharks.
And did it well.
Well, thank you so much.
You're ready next time, you're ready to take over here.
I mean, one or two seemed a little greedy and quick, but the other ones were really absolutely a little, I don't know, they're
sweethearts.
Sweet. But there's a method to the madness. We specifically go to certain sharks. So how does that work? Because how do you tell one from the other?
Well, we have some members of our animal husbandry staff who are excellent, especially Sandy, who you work with, Sandy Schaefer-Paget. She can tell these animals apart, not from just looking through the window here, but from above, which is even harder because the ripples on the water. She knows every shark in there, and as she feeds and as you helped feed, she knew who had eaten and who had not yet. And so she's able to keep track of who still needs their lunch and is able to do it.
What about the fish that we fed them? And also the fact that they eat not every single day. Like you'd think a shark was starving every day.
Yeah, the metabolism's very slow. They don't need to eat every day, which is why, the thing about Jaws is that animal wouldn't eat so constantly like that, especially if people. But yeah, we feed them capelin and herring, which is a type of kind of an oily fish that gets them a lot of nutrition and water.
Now you actually have a dive program here, and it really serves an important purpose.
Yeah, we started this a couple of years ago. One of the divers will speak to our guests, and the guests can ask questions, and it's usually, aren't you afraid to be in there? Why aren't the sharks eating you? And that's the whole point of the presentation, is to bust some of those myths about sharks, that they're all bloodthirsty killers.
We also saw a very special guest today.
Yeah, so the divers are in the water 3 times a week, year-round. It's a dive program.
Year-round.
But yes, in December, we have a special guest from the North Pole who changes his snow boots for swim fins and gets in, and that's a really special treat. Kids kids can get their pictures with Santa, and it's really fun for the dive team too to have Santa in there
It's
with
so
them.
cool. Oh, it's so, so cool. This is such a wonderful spot. You are under construction, but you are still open.
You won't miss anything. Everything that, you know,
anything.
things maybe might be in a different place, but everything is still here.
Oh, it's so great. It really is. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? They want to come down?
Actually, the easiest way is just go to our website, which is maritimeaquarium.org.
And so you're still open all the time?
Except for Thanksgiving and Christmas days, yeah, year round. So, you know, if it's a snowy day or a winter day and you're looking to get out of the house, but it's not, you can't do anything outside, we love those rainy, snowy weekends where
you just feel like you're right there. That's what I love. And there's such a large variety, some that I wouldn't even never think about.
Right.
And then you come here and there they are.
Right. And keep in mind, we're all about Long Island Sound. 95% of the animals you see here are in the Sound or its watershed. And that's our mission, is to try and get people to remember where they go home, probably no matter where they live. Most of our guests live within the Sound's watershed. So even if you don't have shoreline property, things that you do on your property still affect the health of Long Island Sound and these great animals.
Oh, they're fabulous. And even if you don't live here, still you want to come and visit and understand.
And see IMAX movies too.
That's right.
And boat cruises. It will take you out on the Sound in the winter. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Got to get in touch with Dave. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for coming.
This has been a huge thrill. And thank you all out there. This has been Lauren's Crazy Pet Show.